Hi everyone, welcome to this week's video. This week I wanted to talk about boundaries and my take on them. I feel that so much of relationship advice today is stemming from the need to keep people out, the need to protect ourselves. It comes from a strong sense of mistrust and the need to keep other people out. And for me, I think this confusion comes from the lack of clear sense of who we are and our relationship with ourselves. Because, for example, if we come into a relationship from the standpoint of insecurity and hypervigilance and need to protect ourselves and mistrust and expecting to be hurt, then everything that will be happening in the relationship, that the whole interaction will be perceived from that sense of expectation to be hurt, and everything will be colored in those colors. Whereas if we come into a relationship fully self-sourced, fully confident, playful, and not expecting the worst, but expecting something interesting and exciting and adventuresome, then that same conversation, that same experience will be colored completely differently. So to me, the idea, even the need for boundaries, really comes from that lack of clarity about who we are, what we want, what we're supposed to do, be, give. And that is why we need these sort of external buttresses in the form of boundaries, these sort of rules that we need to follow. To me, a boundary is something that can be decided in the moment when we have a clear sense of who we are, and our inner barometer is something we trust and something with which we've built our relationship, where we listen to each other and we act from the inner signal when we feel that we don't want to do something, and we act on it in the moment, or when we feel that we want to and proceed, and we don't need to follow any specific rules imposed on us from outside. It becomes a very natural process. Nobody can ever overstep our boundaries when our sense of self is clear. What I perceive in so many of my conversations, that most of us don't have a very clear sense of our sovereignty. We don't know where we end and other people begin. We're not sure what we're supposed to be responsible for, and we think that other people's moods, needs, and desires are our responsibility, whereas our own wants, desires, and needs are selfish. Of course, coming out of many generations of codependent parenting and relationships, we have lost that inner sense of self, and we have been defining ourselves from other people's feedback. So it's normal that so many of us today find in that state of unclear boundaries and unclear sense of self. And I understand the whole process because I've gone through all of it. And several years ago, I understood that I need to start instilling boundaries and say no in my relationships, because of that being so amorphous and so unshaped in my relationships in the past. I was giving away. It's not so much that other people were taking so much of me. I was giving away more than I could, more than I had to give. So in the end, I found myself depleted. But today, for example, when I'm fully self-sourced, and I know I take care of my needs, and I know that it doesn't pose me any problems to say no when I feel a no, I feel that I don't really operate from boundaries. It's just such a natural part of my own membrane that delineates me, that delineates my sovereignty, that it's such a natural process that I don't need to worry about boundaries at all, because at any moment I can decide what I want to do in the moment. whatever is being asked of me, I can decide at that moment how I feel. Do I feel generous at this moment? Am I well sourced? And am I well rested? And am I generous? Then I can give so much more than maybe I could give a few days ago when I wasn't as fully rested and as well sourced. So once again, these boundaries, especially the boundaries that we seek to be provided from other people, it's a bit of a confusion in my perception of the world, because I think the clearest boundaries we can get is once we get to know ourselves well, and what is a no for me may be a yes for you, or vice versa. For example, even in the coaching world, where I find myself today, there is so much advice, not to give free content, and don't let people into your calendar, and everything has to be so controlled. And I understand, and I check with myself regularly, how much am I willing to give? And today I feel that there is so much that I want to share. I'm so fully sourced. I give free content every day. I do my weekly videos. I give some of my sessions for free, or at least introductory conversations, because I know that when people come to me for those people who want to dig deeper and are ready to work on themselves, they will pay, and I will be, once again, I will get my share of energy exchange in the process. So I'm not afraid to give of myself, because I know that I will receive, once again, because my boundaries are clearly in place, but they are from within. There isn't a rule, that I'm following about coaching and how much I have to give daily and how much I have to give in terms of my time. So it's such an internal process, and the same thing in my relationships, and even in my private relationships, with my children. Some days I'm more willing to give than others. Same thing with my partner. Sometimes I'm busy and I am not as available as other days when I am taking a break from work and am more available to my more private relationships, etc., etc. But what I'm trying to say is that boundaries are not something we can really learn from anyone. It is really our relationship with ourselves, and how much are we in tune with our sense of self, with our sense of how our energy feels to us today, and how much are we prepared to give from it. And the same thing in relationships, right? Because when we enter relationships fully sourced, confident in who we are, understanding our sense of self, safe in our self-expression, then we don't need to worry about boundaries, because we just know if something feels odd, we're going to be out of there. We're going to leave. We're going to say no. And yet, when we are in that more relaxed sense of self, when we are fully confident in our ability to say no, we can be more relaxed and more open to some conversations that can take us on an adventure. We're not afraid of exploration, the exploration that may even take us against our own edges, because that's how we know where these edges are, right? That sense of sovereignty, that sense of where we end and other people begin, comes from our own exploration. It's not other people who are going to tell us that. It's our inner perception of self and our place in the world and other people's role in our lives. When we know that we are the principal character in our life story, we go through life in a particular way where other people will not send us into a disequilibrium. Or if they do, then once again, that's something that we need to understand about ourselves and understand why that happened, and where we're still not very clear about our own sense of yes or no. So I hope this was clear. I wanted to share my take on it because I feel that there is a lot of confusion about boundaries, and that they are more about keeping other people out, whereas to me they are more, how far are we prepared to give and how far are we prepared to go, mostly a self-sourced phenomenon. Thank you for listening, thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next week.